Okay.
Good day to you and happy December. I hope you guys are very well and are as excited to get to the 12th month of 2022. We continue with creating awareness on sexual abuse, and this time around, we're still talking about online sexual abuse. And today, we are really going to talk about grooming. You're going to understand what exactly grooming is. We're going to talk about how do you know that you're actually being groomed? How do we prepare our children to make sure that they don't get scared of the internet, but they are able to use it while they're still safe? And at the end, we are going to finish with how we can make a home plan that is safe so that everybody is able to access the internet and use it safely. I'm privileged to have Emily, who is a parent sex education coach. She has been working with us through this journey of the sexual abuse. And please, Emily, introduce yourself, then we go to our discussion.
Thank you, Nema, for having me here today. My name is Emily Ochieng. I'm a parent and teen sex ed coach and also a child abuse awareness advocate. And I'm happy to be here.
All right, I'm really happy to have you. Thank you so much. So, what exactly is grooming?
Okay, I'll define it in a very layman's way. So grooming is basically seduction before abuse.
Sorry. So,
Okay, so we'll forgive Nema for that. So grooming is seduction before abuse. So that is basically the abusers manipulates the grown-ups and the children to be what they seem not to be before they actually abuse them. Yes. And most of the
oh,
time people think it's abusers just directly groom children, but we see that in most cases they groom adults before they groom children because they need
mm,
adults in a space where they think they're so safe and then let their guard down,
mm,
and then
mm,
they can have the opportunity now to take advantage of the children. Yes.
mm. Yeah, reminds me of a series on Netflix called I think it's called Dark Desires.
Mm.
Yes, it's an adult movie. But yeah, that's exactly what the abuser did at the end. So, as a parent, you said it's the parent who gets groomed to get to the kid. So, how, as a parent, how do I know? How do I know that I'm actually getting groomed?
Okay. So the groomers appear to be people who are literally safe. So they tend to be overly, what do you call it, friendly, and especially towards children in a manner
Okay.
that is not the norm. So for example, me and you having conversations about our children may be totally different. For them, you see
Mm,
their interest is overly
okay.
fixated on children. That's number
Mm,
one. You can actually
mm,
see that there's certain trends. You can see, for example, adults whom you may find from your children gave your children gifts, never told you they gave the children gifts. They may be your relatives, they may be your
mm,
friends. They give you
mm.
find out from your children who bought this. It was Nani so and so brought it. It was Nani so. So they literally
Yeah.
bypassed you to start gifting
Mm,
your children in a way
mm,
which is also enticing those children. Sometimes
mm.
they actually even break boundaries while you are seated there. But then you as an adult, because you don't want to hurt people feeling, so you
Yeah.
you you sit pretty and ignore it, and then now it's extended because they also test. One of the ways in which abusers do is they test boundary breaking. So they'll
Mm,
test the first time, see
mm,
it work, then repeat it again because abuse
mm.
sometimes is never just done in one instance.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's done by, especially for the familiar people. For the strangers you can find it one instance, but the
Mm,
familiar people, it's a process. So that
okay.
process in which they take, so they test the boundary, they see if you don't take anything, then they continue. So most of the time the boundary breaking can even be a person who your child is insisting doesn't want to be touched in certain way and they're still doing it. Or sometimes you see that the way they're overly touching your child is an overly touch. So then
Mm,
it's, oh, me, I just like doing this. No, just
yeah.
say no. Yeah. You're
Mm,
allowed to say no. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that also happens to adults. Like
Mm,
when someone becomes over friendly and you know that this person, like, we really don't relate to each other that way, then
mm,
I would say, like, okay, what exactly are you up to?
yeah.
Even,
What are you up to? Yes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. And are there signs? For example, now as a mom, you have allowed, as a mom or a dad, you've allowed now this person into your lives. Like yes, you were not able to pick the grooming when it was happening to you, and then now it's going to the child, because as you said, it's a process. So how does it advance? So it starts from you luring you as a mom, then goes to the child. What are the things that you'll pick
Yeah.
from this person that will tell you, okay, maybe it's time to just break this connection with this adult?
Yeah, I think most of the time it comes back to us parents to be active listeners. Active listeners here is very under key, because
Mhm.
now active means your child may not tell you things, but then you
Yeah.
need to keep asking what happened, what was, so that you also find out. Active listening is very important, especially in
Mhm.
this space where we are in. It's active listening.
Mhm.
We can't do away with it. So part of the
Yeah.
time you'll find people, if people give gifts to your children, not
Mm.
through you, then you literally need to put a stop to it, both to the child and tell them this is not an okay behavior. You also need to
Okay.
call out the adult loud, especially when the
Mm.
children are hearing and saying, no, in our house we don't do gifts this way. We give gifts in an open manner. We do gifts certain way. So describe your boundaries towards gifting in your house, because most of the time the easiest way they start is by gifting. Gift is very catchy and enticing even for adults. So
Even
when
for
I'll give you, yes, when I'll give you some nice things, you'll feel so nice about it. So
mm,
that is the basic thing that they start with. Sometimes it's
mm,
even by just simple secrets. So they may, because they know
mm,
your child, they may take your child somewhere and be like, don't tell mommy we went to this place. Don't tell.
mm,
So
mm.
also just finding out from your child, actually just that active parents to find out, oh, what happened to your day today? Then they tell you, oh, Nanny so and so took us some. Nanny, there's a way in which children, even if they're told to keep secrets, when you try and ask, there's a way they'll
Ah,
always come and tell you, so long as you
but
don't use the
yeah.
harsh term. So you find,
Mm,
oh, Nanny so and so, and you being sometimes what most parents do is, see that's my friend. Oh, see that's Nanny took them. So you smile about it. No, you
mm,
see, even if you are my friend, you're taking my children somewhere, have the
mm,
courtesy as my friend to first ask if it is okay, and then we agree on what
mm.
way you are engaging with my children, even as they go through that. By
Yeah.
bypassing me, it means your intention is not even right. What we'll do, let me just go back to where I started explaining on the surprise part. That's where you hang up.
Okay. Thanks. Okay.
Okay.
It was actually
So
the Wi-Fi.
let me
I
count
had.
to 8:15.
Yeah. So.
So the surprise here is most of the time adults keep surprises from you. So
Yeah.
that's the easiest way. So people who keep surprise from you,
Mm,
pretend to be your friends. Maybe they did something nice for you. But if you really respect somebody, as a
mm,
parent, you need to come to me
mm,
and tell me, I'm doing this. I want to do this. So
mm,
what is the proper channel? Even if I was
mm.
supposed to surprise you, Nema, and I come and I take your kids, I'll call you back and tell you I picked your kids by the way and I took them to this place. Because
Yeah.
because then you don't keep secrets. But if you do
Mm,
something, you keep secrets about it. There's no good intention about it.
it
So
is
as
true.
parents, you also must be very vigilant. It's the
Mm,
fight against sexual abuse and assault requires all of us to
mm,
be vigilant parents, and active listening here is key, because
mm,
then most of the key, that is most of the ways. And if they use secrets, they use surprises. And the other thing is, if you see somebody who is touching your children inappropriately, just
mm,
call it
mm.
off. Just call
Yeah.
it off. I remember a
Mm,
sad story of which an aunt.
mm,
So this is the sisters. So she saw the husband, who is the father of this child, touch the child
mm.
in a way which the child was not okay. But then she
Okay.
assumed that since it's the dad of the child, she's the
Mm,
dad. So she never spoke
yeah.
about it. But then
Mm,
later years, this child came to confess actually the dad was abusing her. So she was
mm,
like, had I been an adult and stood up that time and
yeah.
said, no, you're touching that child inappropriately, it doesn't
Mm,
matter if you're the dad, I would have
mm,
maybe saved that child from that abuse. So even
yeah.
even if we're in those spaces where we think this is not okay, as an
Mm,
adult, just we can just call it off. We can just call
mm,
it off. We can still
mm,
have that even beyond, because sometimes these things also they carry the children out to those outer spaces. It's even
mm,
for us, even as a community, just sometimes
mm.
to be calling off. You see something so weird, just call
Yeah.
it off if you don't trust it. Yeah, it
Yeah.
may save somebody's child. It may save a child.
Mm, yeah. And this reminds me of our first, I think it's our first conversation we did on online on sexual abuse, about not all parents are safe actually. Yeah, because even parents need to be safe to their children so that they are able to be parents. Otherwise, they all fall in the same basket of being abusers. Now, You see, you talked about gift boundaries. I want you to elaborate about that. What exactly are gift boundaries?
Okay. So gift boundaries here is defining ways in which your children are gifted. One. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, I there may be something that happens. So I can tell my friends, for
Mm,
me, my children, I give them maybe gift. This is the certain level. So that also your gifting doesn't seem it's over, like it's over, there's a way in which gift entice. So you are trying to over entice my children with
mm,
gifting beyond what I usually gift, and drop
mm,
a certain kind of love, which is
mm,
not really
mm,
right. So gift
mm,
boundary number one is telling people out. These are the limits in which gifting is done. Two,
mhm.
defining spaces in which gifting is done for you. So for us, maybe gifting is done within certain spaces when we celebrate one, two, three. So you've
Yeah.
clearly defined. Three, you can tell
Mm,
somebody, if you really feel you want to gift my child, then you
mm,
have to ask if it is okay for you to gift and what certain gift to bring. Because you can
mm.
also bring a gift that for us is not right. It may have
Yeah.
boundaries. For example, you
Yeah.
you may decide to bring my child a very nice iPhone. Me, for example, I've not allowed my children to use iPhones. So that is
Mm,
gift boundaries. And every parent must have gift boundaries. Even if
mm,
it's relatives, it's whoever, people must know that this is the way we gift in our house, and these are the boundaries towards gifting.
yeah. I like that, especially right now we are entering this festive season. There are usually so many gifting and gifted what going on. So it's important for all of us to know. So who do you expect accept the gifts from, and what type of gifts do you accept? Because that's very important. And I think this is also applies to adults. I mean, someone will give you something, but at the end of the day, not all, but some usually have an intention behind that gift. So it's very important to be very clear, like, okay, I may take this gift, but really don't expect anything from me. No returns. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. And it also reminds me, you've spoken about holidays. It's also for us to be very keen on people who call children to their houses without asking adults.
Mm,
So you call my children to your house, you have a party, you have what that maybe their children have parties. If
mm,
it's just important that as adults you create that boundary. Even your children know if
mm,
they've been called to a certain space because they are
mm,
children, their parents must go through you. So you
yeah.
create that boundary so that children also have that boundary. Because sometimes
Mm,
it's even those neighbors who call your children to their houses who come back and abuse your children. So
yeah.
it's really clear to have boundaries. The
Mm,
people associating with your children know this is a family that have clear boundaries, and the children really know their
mm,
boundaries. Yeah.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. And remember the statistics, more than 70% of abuse either happens at home or in a place near home. So it's usually not something very foreign for a child. It's just that they tend to trust that person. So now what happens when you like, okay, so you've actually decided that you've confirmed that this adult is actually grooming my son or my daughter, and you go talk to your son or daughter and they're like, no, 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 mom, you're overreacting, or dad, you're overreacting. I don't think he or she is a nice person. How do you go about that?
Okay. So first is just bringing your children to the reality that sometimes people intention is not what appears.
Yeah.
So people may give you sugar appears as salt, and it's still it's salt
So,
appears like sugar and it's still salt. So really,
mm,
just having that candid conversation with the children, you're not pinpointing that this person is bad because number one, you
mm,
may not have caught them on the act, but just telling
yeah.
them they have to be in a space where they are aware of the
Mm,
interactions that happen around them. And people
mm,
who break boundaries, when they start breaking one boundary,
mm,
have likelihood of breaking other boundaries. So
mm,
explaining to them in relation to boundaries. If somebody breaks your first boundary, they're likely to break your second and your third
yeah.
and your
Yeah.
so
Mm,
anyone who breaks your boundary is somebody we really need to be vigilant on because they've started breaking boundaries.
mm,
And that is how you have that particular conversations with the child. Two, you need to be just upfront. And I know most of us like this. It's a people pleasing culture where we don't want to openly speak about our boundaries. Like
mm,
it's a whole lot of like speaking it out. It's a whole lot of peace. I
mm,
wish more adults will do this more often. Just speak it out. So it's
mm,
important also when you feel somebody is overstretching, Just have that,
mm,
even if it's your relative, just have the candid conversation of, uh, there's a way in which I like my parenting to be done and
mm,
associate with my children to be done, because I'm
mhm,
trying to create a certain culture, and the way you are relating may be off my culture. That's a
mm,
very soft way of, if it is somebody you don't want to brush off, can be that. You can just
mm.
tell them that it's a way in which I find you're bringing a certain culture, and my children will get used to it, and strangers may even take advantage of it. So you've
Yeah.
already started warning this person that even if they are in the intention, you've told them that you want this off because there's somebody. So you've not told them directly. If you feel
Mm,
that I don't want you because I feel this way, but you've already told them you don't want to create
mm,
that culture because people will take advantage of your children. So then
mm,
if there are people who respect you, then they'll definitely say, okay, this one
mm,
I need to literally stay out of. And if
mm,
you've also noticed one to repeat from a particular person, this is a
mm,
parent also begin and consistently monitor what is
mm,
really happening between that
mm.
person and any other thing. Because now the next thing they become is, now keep this other secret. They may come back to the children and be like, now
Mm,
it's more secretive, more secretive. So you really, yes. Also be
oh,
on the watch out to see what new things do your children have that you've not bought.
yes, yes.
Because where do they find the money to buy those things? Who are gifting them with those things? We must
Mm,
it's an area where we literally must be active parents. Your child who is not working walks home with a phone you've not
mm.
bought, they cannot afford, their pocket money cannot afford. Where have
Yeah.
they gotten those gifts? So we
Even if
literally
your
also,
even
yes,
if
you
your
have
pocket can afford, you just don't buy things. I remember when we were
yes.
growing up, if for any reason my mom or my dad will find you something they have never given you or bought, oh my God, it's gonna be war. And I remember you are actually made to return to whoever gave you those things. It was that serious. So if somebody was to give you a gift, you're even scared of receiving that gift because you're like, I can't go through this, man. I can't. Yeah. And I think that's the way it's supposed to be even today.
Yes, it should be
Sorry.
like that. It should be
Yeah.
like that. And also the other thing is, most of the time groomers now tend to make people secretive. So also
Mm,
try looking for those signs in which your child withdraws. It may not necessarily, as we said from the start, remember our first episode, we said it may not necessarily be a sexual abuse, but that
mm,
withdrawal is a sign of something that as a parent you need to find out, whether it's
yeah.
bullying, whether it's
Mm,
cyberbullying, whether it's just general bullying, whether it's something peer
mm,
pressure, something that has made that child withdraw. You need to find out
mm,
ways of helping that child. So a child
mm,
that also you see is very withdrawn, starts being very secretive about things,
mm, mm,
then as a
mm.
parent you literally need to start checking on that. Yes.
Okay. All right. And as we so for a child who's now accessing the internet, whether at home or in school or wherever they are, in private or in public, what are some of the things that as a parent you should be able to tell your child that if you see a person inquiring about 1, 2, 3, 4, run. That's not a person you really want to entertain. What are some of those, like we call them red flags? I know
Yeah.
somebody made a meme like, okay, the flag could be red, but the fabric is is very good. But anyway, so how do we tell our children these are the red flags?
Yes, so it's also continuously. Let's not assume that children, since you've had the first talk about the gadget, they will remember it. So it's a
Mm,
continuous conversation of online safety with the child, just making
mm,
equipping a child to know that the online world is not what it seems. Talking about people who appear strange, so they appear over friendly. They'll want they give over nice things, like they say. Now they're not giving them very over nice things. Or what, I saw this picture. You're very pretty. 1, 2, 3. When it comes to those self affirmation things that all of us look into outside the world, so and
mm,
try to entice you. So just keep on reminding your children that they need to be vigilant, especially of the communication they have, and especially if they have gadgets. And
mm,
as a parent, especially, you're going to those first of the teens who are now even approaching the young adults.
yes.
For the ones who are younger, please, as a parent, just find ways of also monitoring what goes through
Mm,
in their lives and just have candid conversations of also that. So keep
mm,
don't tire. As a parent, don't tire having conversation around safety. Don't tire.
Mm,
Children learn by repetition. Today
mm,
they'll forget. So just keep reminding them. When those
yeah.
news come, when you see ugly things on social media, take those
Mhm.
ones as an opportunity to remind
Yeah.
children of the lessons that they need to take
Mhm.
tune on. Yes, it's an important
Okay.
part.
All
And
right.
the other bit I also wanted to talk about is the special needs children here a bit. So
Mhm.
most of the time you find that we assume that their behavior, their kind of communication, maybe
Mm,
because of what they're going through. So you
mm,
also need to be more keen as a parent who has a special needs person, because then they may be having this behavior, but then you assume it's their normal tendency. They may still
mm.
have those trouble, those funny things, and
Mhm.
that easily, especially that easily taken advantage of. So as
Mm,
parents, it's also important to literally have look basic look at their caregivers, the people they associate with, continuously check on them,
mm,
remind these children what in languages that they can understand, because different what they call it, special needs, different children have different communication styles. For some it's the
mhm,
art, for some it's whatever form of
mm,
communication that tells them, utilize
mm,
that to remind them. And for them especially, I find
mm,
more practical scenarios work, not that you're
mm,
scaring them. So, for example, I may see a lesson on TV that really picks up, and maybe this is a very visual for me. That my child who has special needs is very visual. So we may
mm,
take that part that has occurred for us to even try and discuss, if this happens, what are the best scenarios for us to do. So do
mm,
more of practical sessions for them, so that they
mm,
also internalize and understand how their reaction is, even how reporting to you can be. Because sometimes you
mm,
just tell them, you tell me this, but then when they practice, then they know, if this happened, this is the way I can speak back to my
mm,
children.
mm.
So you need to
Yeah.
take more care and more, what do you call it, sessions with them, and try to
Mm,
be as more practical as them. Not that you're bringing in what do you call them, scaring them, but
yeah.
finding the language in which they learn best, and then
Mm,
utilizing those language with the scenarios that occur to explain all
mm.
these happenings to them. Yes.
Yeah. And this I would want to this also includes to the nonverbal because
Yeah.
there are kids who are nonverbal, like you can't talk to them like the way we are talking right now. But they usually use pictures, they usually draw. So, as Emily has said, it's very important to understand your child,
Yeah.
understand their learning style.
Mm,
And you see, there's has to be a way you communicate at home. So don't make it too complicated for them.
mm,
But the key thing is every day ask them, how was school? How was your day? Find a way of making sure that you are constantly updated of what is happening in your child's life.
mm, mm.
Thank you for bringing up the special needs.
And also some, as you say, the special needs, there's some children who never will never tell you something has happened, so you'll even ask 1,000 times, they'll never tell you. But then for
Mm,
those children, diary journaling is a perfect tool for children, even if it's
oh,
just drawing. So what you do
mm,
is tell them. Sometimes I find, like for me, I have two children who have different talking styles. One talks, one does not talk. So the other one
mhm.
literally bought them each of them a very nice journal. Whatever you
Okay.
want to express, you may not want to tell me by mouth, you can
Mm,
write here and then bring, if it is something you really want mommy to read, you can even leave it there for me. I will read it. So that, because
wow.
you're also trying to establish boundaries in which you don't just also snoop into their journals and break that
Yeah.
boundaries. So you have an
Mm,
open conversation and saying this, you may even buy them too. So this one is for you to share communication with mommy. Anything you want to draw, you feel like you don't want to talk, but you want to put it inside. Yeah, just put it.
mm,
So it's also
okay.
because you've opened a session for your child. They may not necessarily come and tell you the whole thing, but they can draw for you, and you see this child is going through something. They can
Happening.
write something. So, as you
Mm,
say, Nema, the basic is learn your child's best way of communication. Every
yeah.
person has their way of communication. Find your
Mm,
child and
yeah.
utilize it. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And nobody else can help you. As a parent,
Yeah.
I think that's your responsibility. It's you who's going to tell the teachers how your child learns. But
Mm,
because this child spends most of their time at home before they go to school, so by the time they're going to school, there are things that should have developed at home.
mm, mm,
So, as we wind up on the family safety plan, what does it look like?
okay. So family safety plan is number one in a parent preparing how to have conversation with their children.
Mhm.
So no, first is a parent knowing the basics. which I think
mm,
this part of the series has really elaborated. And if you
mm,
still find, if you find need to have more knowledge, and also do research so that you are more informed. It starts by you having being more informed as a parent. Number
mm,
two is how you having a plan of how you're going to communicate with your children. As we've
mm,
said, we don't want to scare our children off that the world is literally hanging and very
yeah,
terrible. The world
mm,
may be terrible, but there are still beauties of the world. So we have
mhm,
to bring in those two parts of conversation, even as we talk to our children about safety. So
mm,
having a plan of how you're going to have this conversation, you may think
mm,
of what are your best moments. So for example, holiday now, because you do a lot of connections, I can tell parents is also a very good time to have conversations around boundaries. So we can speak
mm,
about we'll be going over so and so's house. What are our boundary rules? It's
mm.
you've brought it in a very informal way, but you've
Yeah,
spoken about boundaries. Oh, we are going
true.
to Shosho's place. What are our
Mm,
boundaries? So
mm,
you utilize every aspect to talk about boundaries. You can
mm,
even now bring in people are now the third part of the safety plan is involving people in your children's life to
mm,
know what your safety plan and boundary is as a family unit. So, for
mm.
example, if I have a nanny who takes care of my child, they need to understand so that I don't assume that because they're my nanny, they know what the boundaries are.
It's
They
true.
need to understand, and we need to literally have boundaries on that.
Mm,
Everything, including
mm,
if a child has done something wrong, what are the processes of communication, what are the processes of discipline do we use, what kind of
mm,
discipline works for us in this house, what work does not
mm,
work. We must have
mm,
those conversations with the people. That's number one. Number two is
mm.
what other people do you want to bring? I know most of us co-parents, not
Yeah.
necessarily because we have different father and mother staying away, but
Mm,
we co-parent because sometimes we also have our moms, our
mm,
grandfather take care of our children. So we do
children, yeah.
co-parenting a lot. Or maybe your sisters, maybe you work a lot and you have a sister who helps you co-parent during the holidays. So it's also
Mm,
important that you're on the same page, speak the
mm,
same language about these people, and then literally just come back to your children and tell your children. Now, in case sometimes the world is off, we may try to do our best, but then if something is off, then who do we run to for help? So that your
mm,
child has someone registered in their mind who is a safe person. I tell
mm,
people try as much as possible to have at least a minimum of three. Your child can count three in their hand. If they
mm,
can count five, that's okay. But also, you
mm,
don't want too many people. So also don't go beyond five. Yes.
mm,
So 3 to 5 is an ideal number. So that your
mm,
child know maybe my safe person is auntie so and so. My safe person is maybe a grandma. My safe person is this teacher in school. So that they know specifically people, because sometimes also children may be scared to speak with you as a parent, but they may speak to the other safety people you've told
yeah.
there's safe people they can speak to. So it's always
Mm,
good not to assume that your child may tell you everything. Sometimes they may not tell you. You may try as best as much to have the connection, they may not tell you, but then they can
mm,
still have those other people. The other part of the safety plan is telling your children if an abuse happens or if they see. I say it's also important for us to help our children be good citizens. So if
mm,
they see somebody else being abused, then maybe in school, what can they
mm,
do with this person?
mm,
Go to the
mm,
teacher, which particular teacher they say. If they're
mm,
in the estate, who can they go to tell? It's their friend who is being abused and they're witnessing. Who can they
mm,
go and tell? So that we don't also, it's not just about our children, we're also raising self citizens, because
mm.
then their future is better because we have better citizens growing up. So
Yeah.
literally also defining what is the area of support. If mommy is not at home, something bad happens. Dad is
Mm,
not at home, something
mm,
bad happens. Where do
mm,
you run? So, for
yeah.
example, you left home with a nanny who was abusing them.
Mm,
Have you allowed one of your neighbors to be a safe person? And have you
mm,
spoken with that neighbor and told them, I've told my children you are the
mm,
safe person they can come to in case something happens in my house, they're not there. Please, if they
mm,
come and tell you this, you take this action. So that it's
yeah.
also so that this person also knows there's this safety communication that has happened. It's very
Mm,
important because
mm,
sometimes we also assume our homes may be so safe, we may not be there and things scramble and our children don't have anywhere to run to. So just try to have an areas in which your child knows I have this safe person who is not my parent in the estate. I have this person in charge, all that. So that is what we call part of the safety plan that you really must
mm,
have. I
mm,
also have to go still as we've spoken about the special needs children that parents really have to be more vigilant and have continuous communication with
mm,
their, especially the people who take care of their children. It's very important, very,
mm,
very important. And the other aspect is also these safety people may change. So for example, today, if my child's teacher is in that safety plan, if in 2 years that person is not my child's teacher, they can be removed from that safety plan. Okay.
Okay.
So if I tell my child, because now they are not in direct contact, then we change the people. So it's also okay to change those the people that you speak around. But it's
Mm,
generally about having conversations around this may happen. How do we protect ourselves? How do we take care of anyone else who is not us, who is gone through such a scenario? Yes, because
mm,
sometimes also telling your children about taking care of others may also allow them to open up if they were hiding, because they
yeah.
see, okay, my parents is even concerned about others. So it may
Mm,
also be a way of, even sometimes they were hiding and they were like, there was also this time that this happened to me. So they can tell
mm,
you by extension, because they've seen you're allowing space even to communicate about others.
mm. Okay.
Yes.
So how do we choose these safe people?
Okay. So safe
Yeah.
people, you literally have to know somebody's character. I tend
Mhm.
to think that the more motherly people are, I'm not saying that men cannot be in that safety plan. There's
Yeah,
some men who are really, what do we call it?
that's
You really see that they're very, 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 very good. But most of the time, as mothers, we tend to pick people who are more motherly. And you can literally see, number one, you look for a person who, beyond motherly, is a person who can speak out. So
yeah.
there are people, they may be motherly, but when they hear something, they keep quiet. I don't want
Mm,
that kind of a person to be in my safety plan. I want
mm,
somebody who can give me honest talk. Like, this
mm,
is off.
mm,
Mama Ethan, Mama Who, Mama Eunice. This is
mm,
off. You also want people who can literally tell you that. They are
mm,
better safety people than people who keep quiet, because then they
yeah.
won't help you. Yes. So you
Mm,
want people who can talk. You want people who are, you have some kind of way in which the two of you communicate that you see is in sync. And
mm,
here, they're more motherly or they're more fatherly. At least you know something about them that you think is right. Like, you may even have sisters and you see, hey, this one I cannot, as in also use your instinct. There's that instinct that just tells you this is my blood, lakini.
mm, yeah.
Yes, so
Mm,
yeah, it's
yeah.
literally that. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And for example, in school, you can even just be open about the school and tell a teacher. If there's a teacher in your school, you can tell them, I've been talking to my children about safety, and I've told them, if anything happens to school, they'll come to you. So that teacher
Mm,
also knows, they have an idea. There's I've
with
been
a
given some power
responsibility.
somewhere. Yes,
Yeah.
about being a safety leader for these particular
Mm,
children. Yeah.
mm. Okay. Now coming into our homes, and for those who are not watching us from Kenya, we are watching this, having this conversation from Nairobi, and looking at the kind of estates we have. What are the other options? Because sometimes you may not have a safe neighbor, not necessarily because they are not safe people, but it's because most of us don't really take the time to know our neighbors to that extent. So what are the other alternatives that are there?
Okay. So the other alternative is, in even in our whether it's rural areas or urban areas, there's what
Mm,
we call administrative people.
okay.
So administrative people here are the people, like, you see, you can even, as you walk somewhere, it's just
Mm,
also alerting your children. No, this is the chief's office. If something
mm,
happens, you can literally come here. So this is
mm,
where people bring all their problems. So
mm,
as in, there are problems that needs a government person to take care of, something like that. Because most
mm,
of the time also, you may find something, you've seen something happening maybe to a neighbor, and you don't want directly to communicate with them. Sometimes
mm,
going to the chief helps, because now the chief can take over.
mm,
We tend to undermine their role, but their role is very key, because sometimes I may see something happening in my neighbor's next home. I don't want
mm,
direct involvement, but I need to
mm,
save a situation. Then I
mm.
can just do what? Take them
Go
to
to
that
the
person.
mm,
Yes. The other one is, you can also speak about the numbers that exist that people can seek support. So for
yeah.
example, you can tell your child, there's this what do you call it, number. If something happens for you, you don't have
Mm,
anybody to speak to, you can call this
mm,
number. So those
mm,
are numbers in which people can call and speak about it. And I think what we can do is, we can share, and maybe
mm,
then you can put a few of the numbers, even that the toll-free numbers that usually take cases, and people can call and then seek advice, because sometimes somebody may not know anybody else, but then the only thing they have is they can get a phone somewhere, and then they can just call and they maybe just say something. And also it's important, part of that safety plan is also important to tell our children, sometimes if we lose everybody, this is how we can report when we call this number. But that needs you do, please, as parents also, let's do these things in phases. We don't want to dump every information at once to children, so that they're also scared, because when somebody's scared, then they block.
It's
So
true.
let us try to do the information about sexual abuse and safety in phases, so that they understand and digest the information. So you've talked to them about, they know what abuse is, what safety is. You can even pin those numbers on your fridge, safety numbers.
Yeah.
Yes, you can pin them somewhere so that you know that these are safety numbers. Anything happens, we want to call.
Sorry.
Anything happens, we want to call. This is the numbers that we call, so that they also
Okay.
know. And then explain to your child the process. So, for example, if you're calling somebody, what can you say? You can call and say, so most people when they call, so you can even use a scenario base. So a certain child was abused this way. So when they call and say, I'm calling because, saying is even trying to explain to children, especially now the ones who are older and can understand, what is the process of when I call, how do I communicate, so that they can get the best help. The other trick is also giving children what we call codes. So codes
Okay.
is, for example, if your child interacts a lot outside, I can tell them our safe code. If anything ever happens to you and you cannot speak, you can only say one word. This is our safe code. So that
Yeah.
anytime, even if they send you a text, and whatever word you choose, even if it's pumpkin, even if, and just choose a word that it will just trigger you. You know,
Yeah.
for example, you can even say, if I drop you to your friend's house, you don't feel safe. You don't want to start telling me you're not safe because they will hear. Just write for me this, I'll come back for you. So that they also know that they have something like this is our safe code. That I send mommy, she know when I send this, I don't need to explain any other thing on the phone. She knows I
Yeah.
need help, and she will stop everything and come for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, today she has joined us. It's okay. It's
Yeah.
children. She wants to internalize. It's okay.
Okay. I
Yeah.
really like the code.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that is very safe and it has really saved a lot of children. I've seen it
Yeah.
work and I really like it. Now, you mentioned about the administratives, the chiefs and all that. What is your take on caretakers? You know, because most of the estates, I don't like. I'm looking. Do I even know where my area chief is? I don't know.
Okay.
So I can tell that to my child. So what do you think of caretakers?
Yes, yes, yes. In
Pet-
estate, yes, children can also speak with caretakers, but also identify, because sometimes I may have several caretakers in that land, but I can see ours newly, as in identify people who will take action on your children report. That's the key thing about safety, not just
Okay.
adults. So that even if we are in five neighboring, I know ours. See you lame chap chap. Then I know the next neighbor is a very chap chap one. I can tell
Yeah.
my child, you can go to, you see that caretaker there? That one,
Mm-hmm.
if you go, will run very fast and save you. So even as a parent, I've identified that those people who, when my children speak to, they can literally take action. I remember us making a joke with my nieces that if anything happens, their father is not the first person to call because he never takes the call. So
Yeah. Yeah.
they
It's true.
literally call a third person who will save them before their father comes. Not that the father is not a caring person. No, he's very caring. He is
Yeah.
very caring. But you see also that is what we say. It's, you look for people who, you know, when something you drop, they will literally
Right.
just run. Sometimes it can even be that mama kiosk you buy
It's
milk to. But you've
mm,
seen she's a person who, when something is said, they can really take action. So it's up to you as a
mm,
parent to
mm,
identify who within your circle, you know, when
mm,
something is told to them, they will drop everything and help this child. So
yeah.
it doesn't matter whether that's Mama Mboga, whether that's man they are sell, whether that's choma mwenye anachoma mahindi hapo, but
Yeah.
they can take action. And you see, this
Mm,
is, you've become a vigilant parent, at least know a few people. Also, let's
yeah.
not just not be silos. When our children try to identify 1, 2, 3, 4 people around.
Mhm.
Yes, it's also
Yeah.
just to
And
help.
I
Yeah.
think that is the whole idea. We should have healthy relationships around us,
Yes.
starting from where you live. Because you
Mhm.
see, I always say there's always a reason for people to be in your life. It
Yes.
doesn't matter what they do, because you never know when something strikes,
Mhm.
It's could
Mm.
be, as that mama, the guy chomaring Maindi or the mama
Yes.
mboga actually to save your child.
Yeah.
Wow, I
Yeah.
love.
And when you continuously have the conversation. So for example, even if your child goes to Mama Mboga and Mama Mboga doesn't know the step, and maybe you've told your child, you can
Mm,
even save people, you can even tell them, take me to the chief. So that they understand that is already this is an
mm,
informed child who knows.
yeah,
I don't know where
yeah,
the chief's place is, but I know
yeah.
this Mama Mboga can take me to the chief's place.
So,
Mm.
Emily, as we wind up, what's your parting shot?
Okay. So for me, it's I'll still repeat what I said in the previous session. And if you haven't watched any of our previous sexual abuse conversation, just go and plug in.
Mm,
So for me, it's a conscious parent, because conscious parent means you are present with intentionality. It's
mm,
about being active, and here I repeat, active listening. Most
yeah.
children don't speak about what's happening in their life. They don't speak. They don't talk about it. So it's
Mm,
you reading the signs that are not telling you that something is off, and as
mm,
parents, is trying to. It's okay. Today we have a guest on the show. So it's about
mm,
parents being active listening to what children are saying and to what they are not saying, because
yeah.
that which they're not saying is much more than which they're saying. So
Mm,
for me, that is my literally parting shot. That, and as parents, let's all just be take our charge. Take our
mm,
charge, take our charge, take our charge. Let's
mm,
stop. It's a holiday festive season. Please remember your boundaries. You don't need to
mm,
break your boundaries for anybody. You don't need to
mm,
please anybody. And let me also say the last one. Also, adults, let's respect our children boundaries. Just because we are their parents doesn't mean, for example, you remember the sessions you talked about, those hugs, those kind of excessive relationship, because then
mm,
even as parents, as we start to breaking them, then they will
mm.
learn it's okay for others to break them. So those are my
Yeah.
parties. Yes.
Okay. And I think as a parent, it's important to know how your child spends their time, especially during this time when, you see, during holidays, everyone is on freestyle mode. But it's very important to have some sort of a routine for your child, and you should be able to account for their time. So whenever you see there are times that you're not sure, so where is my son, where is my daughter? It's usually very nice to know, because that those are the loopholes. If you're not very careful of, abusers can easily use them. Yeah, so well, this is my daughter, and yeah, she's insisting to be part of this. But anyway, I hope you guys have a beautiful December. And we have one more session with Emily. And yeah, have yourselves a good time. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.